This podcast contains graphic violence and profanity. Parental discretion is advised. I do not recommend your children listening to this story before you've listened to it first. And you can decide whether to let your children listen to this. Again, parental discretion is advised. This podcast contains graphic violence and profanity. A few days ago, I uploaded a video. It was an interview that Neoma and I did with author D.A. Roberts. D.A. Roberts is a author of 22 novels of fiction that center around the topic of cryptids. I got his permission to narrate the prologue for the first book in the series, codenamed Wild Hunt. I'm going to show the book cover as I narrate this. But if you guys like really good, fast-moving, action-packed, no unnecessary detail books, fun books to read, every book I've read by D.A. Roberts, I'm on number 5 right now. I've read the whole Wild Hunt series, and they're fantastic. And all these books interlock. There's no order you have to read them in. You can read them in any order. But I thought I would just share with you the prologue of Odin's Call to give you a little taste of how action-packed these books are. So I hope you enjoy this little break from the norm, but it's an upload that I think you'll enjoy. So let's get into codename Wild Hunt, Odin's Call, the prologue. All right, here we go. Prologue. There are not enough Indians in the world to defeat the 7th Cavalry. General George Armstrong Custer. 1835 hours Central Standard Time, 16 November, somewhere in the Ouachita Mountain Range, Oklahoma. The snow was coming down heavily and the temperature was rapidly dropping down into the single digits in the remote section of the Ouachita Mountains of southern Oklahoma. The wind was coming out of the north, and with the added wind chill, could slice you to the bone and leave you feeling chilled to your very core. Winter had set in early this year when the polar vortex had dipped lower than expected and brought near Arctic temperatures to the Midwest. The silence was shattered by the unmistakable sound of a helicopter coming in low over the frigid waters of Broken Bow Lake. Ordinarily, a military helicopter coming in this low would alert residents that something was going on out of the ordinary. However, this was not to be the case. In this remote part of the Ouachitas, there wasn't anyone around. The nearest civilization, or what passed for civilization, in this rugged country was a little place called Hokutown, Oklahoma. It wasn't exactly civilization as most people know it. Even that small beacon of hope was nearly 10 miles away as the crow flies across a lake whose waters were cold enough to kill you in minutes. The Sikorsky U-860 Black Hawk helicopter approached low and slow, moving up Broken Bow Lake to an inlet at North Otter Creek. Banking northeast up the inlet, they headed for a sandbar at the end. That was not to be the rendezvous point, and they were coming in about 5 minutes late.
Snakebite 6-1 to Papa Juliet 6,
said the pilot.
Do you copy? Over.
There was a long pause with no response.
Snakebite 6-1 to Papa Juliet 6, do you read? Over,
he said. Only static returned on the secured channel. Maybe they're having trouble with their comms, suggested the co-pilot.
This is Snakebite 6-1,
said the pilot.
Papa Juliet 6, can you read me? Over.
Heavy static filled the speakers, and then a partial transmission came through, but it was badly garbled.
Quest, extract, Say again, said Snakebite. Last call station, say again please. Quest, extract, and count.
The pilot and co-pilot glanced at each other, each trying to piece together what they were hearing. Then the transmission cleared for just a moment, and they heard words that chilled them worse than the frigid air outside.
Broken arrows,
said the voice over the comm channel.
We have a broken arrow.
Holy shit, said the pilot. They're being overrun.
Papa Juliet 6, can you reach the extraction point? Over,
said the pilot. Only static came back. What the hell's going on, sir? Asked the co-pilot. There can't be any hostiles in this area, replied the pilot. We're in fucking Oklahoma, not Afghanistan. What the fuck's going on down there? We're 1 minute from the LZ, said the co-pilot.
Snakebite 6-1 to base,
said the pilot, switching channels.
Papa Juliet is declaring broken arrow. Say again, Papa Juliet 6 is declaring a broken arrow. Request additional support units. Copy Snakebite 6,
said the base.
We copy broken arrow. Fast movers inbound to your position. ETA 15 minutes. Can you advise? Over. Understood,
said Snakebite.
We'll attempt to extract and continue to advise. No further radio contact from Papa Juliet 6 at this time. Over.
They'll never get here in time, said the co-pilot. We're all they've got. Chief, get on that minigun, said the pilot, turning back towards the rear compartment. We're going in hot. If they're being overrun, then we're going to have to lay down cover fire so they can get to us. Gotcha, boss, said the crew chief, knocking the cover off the M134 7.62mm 6-barreled electric minigun mounted on the side of the chopper. As they approached the landing zone, they could see the marks in the freshly fallen snow of tracks leading out onto the LZ. Unfortunately, there was no sign of the team that they had inserted here just 10 hours ago. I don't like this, said the pilot. Where the hell are they? No idea, sir, said the co-pilot. I see tracks in the snow, but where are our people? That's what I'd like to know, said the pilot. As they approached and began their descent, something caught their eye. At first, it only looked like some colorful piece of equipment in the fading daylight. Then it became clearer when they were almost on the deck. Holy shit, said the co-pilot. I think that's blood. I think you're right, said the pilot. I'm calling this in. The co-pilot left his headset on the ground team's frequency while the pilot switched back over to the primary channel.
Snakebite 6-1 to base,
said the pilot.
Do you copy? Over. Go ahead, Snakebite,
came the reply.
Base, be advised,
said Snakebite.
We're seeing what appears to be blood on the LZ. There's no sign of the team, but there's a lot of blood on the ground. Do you copy? Over. Snakebite, did you say blood? Over,
said Base.
Affirm,
said Snakebite.
I'm counting 4 different spots with significant blood loss. Over.
We've got movement, shouted the co-pilot. Out of the trees emerged 2 figures in military fatigues. One was injured and leaning heavily on the other one. They were both firing their weapons behind them as they attempted to make it to the helicopter. What the hell are they shooting at? Asked the pilot. I don't have a target, said the crew chief. Switch to thermal, shouted the pilot over his shoulder. Copy, replied the crew chief, adjusting his goggles. Contact, I've got contact. What do you see? Demanded the pilot. 4 large heat sources in the trees behind them, said the crew chief. 2 groups of 2. What are they? Asked the co-pilot. Some kind of animal? That's no goddamn animal I've ever seen, said the crew chief. They're moving on 2 legs and they're fucking huge, like 8 feet tall or more. Light 'em up, shouted the pilot. Copy that, shouted the crew chief. Going hot. The multi-toned electric whine of the minigun spooling up filled the chopper, and the crew chief began walking tracer fire into the nearest group of creatures. One immediately went down with a spray of heat onto the surrounding cold of the snow. It was clear it was blood that had sprayed everywhere. One tango down, shouted the crew chief. The other creature began moving rapidly through the trees, and the crew chief attempted to follow it with the minigun, but it was just too fast. And before he could track the weapon back to cover the 2 soldiers on the ground, the other 2 creatures were on them, and he could see on the thermal that they were being torn apart. Arms and legs were being ripped from the two soldiers. Wounds like that couldn't be treated in the field. They were both going to be dead in seconds if they weren't already. "They're down," shouted the pilot. "Those fucking things ripped them to pieces." "Take them out," shouted the pilot. "Get us the fuck out of here," shouted the co-pilot. The barrels of the minigun began to spool up again when a tree the diameter of a telephone pole and at least 15 feet long came flying out of the trees. Snakebite 6-1 climbed for the sky at full power, but it was too late. The tree impacted with their tail rotor and sheared it off just as they were veering out over the lake. Warning alarms began sounding through the cockpit and lights were blinking all over the console. They began spinning around and around as they moved even further out over the water.
"Mayday,"
shouted the pilot over the radio.
"We're hit. Snakebite 6-1 is hit. We're going down."
"Try and get us to the shore," shouted the co-pilot.
"Say again, Snakebite,"
said Base.
"God damn it, we're fucking hit,"
shouted Snakebite.
"We're going down, we're going down." "What hit you?"
asked Base.
"Are you taking fire? Over?" "Negative,"
said the pilot.
"We were hit by a tree." "Snakebite 6-1, did you say that you were hit by a tree?"
asked Base.
"No,"
snapped the pilot, still fighting for control of the dying aircraft.
"Something threw it at us like a goddamn javelin." "Say again, Snakebite 6-1,
said Base.
"Did you say a tree was thrown at your aircraft?"
The pilot ignored them. He was too busy trying to maintain altitude long enough to get them over land. But when they lost the tail rotor, they lost most of their ability to maneuver. The chopper continued to spin uncontrollably and was still moving farther out over the open water of the lake. They were close to 100 yards offshore. "We're not going to make it," shouted the co-pilot. "Brace for impact," shouted the pilot. "We're going down in the water." The nose of the helicopter dipped low and struck the surface of the lake. It dug in, dragging the stub of the tail higher into the air, which caused the rotors to impact with the water while still spinning at high velocity. The force of the impact shattered the rotors and sent shrapnel flying in all directions. A large shard of metal came through the canopy and impaled the co-pilot through the face, pinning his head to the seat. Momentum carried the chopper over onto its top, and the frigid water began filling the compartment. It began to sink rapidly, and the pilot struggled to get out of his harness. The crew chief crawled between the seats and began cutting the harness away to free the trapped pilot. There was blood running down the chief's face, and he had somehow lost his flight helmet.
"Mayday!"
shouted the pilot into the mic.
"Mayday! Snakebite is down. Say again, Snakebite is down."
"We got to get out of here before she drags us to the bottom," shouted the chief. "I think my leg's broken," said the pilot, wincing in pain. "I've got you, Mike," said the chief, trying to sound reassuring. The frigid water rushed in to meet them as they tried to extract themselves from the rapidly sinking aircraft. As the last of the aircraft vanished beneath the dark and frigid water, only air bubbles came to the surface. Then all was silent in the cold and dark of the night. After nearly 30 seconds, the bubbles had ceased coming up when the crew chief burst to the surface. Dragging the unconscious pilot, swimming as hard as he could in the freezing water, he managed to pull them both out onto a sandbar. The muscles in his arms and legs were already starting to cramp from the cold. Laying on the shore in the snow, he was shivering and coughing up water. Ice was already forming in his hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes. "Mike!" shouted the crew chief, trying to rouse the pilot. "Mike, wake up!" He heard the sound of crunching snow behind him and suddenly remembered the creatures that had torn apart the two soldiers on the ground. "Oh my God," he said, looking over his shoulder as he reached for the holstered sidearm under his left arm. Before he could reach the weapon, massive hands wrapped around his head and crushed his skull like an egg. He tried to scream, but it was muffled beneath the creature's immense hands. Thankfully, the pilot never regained consciousness. When the two F-16D Fighting Falcons arrived on station, scrambled for the 138th Fighter Wing of the Tulsa Air National Guard, there was nothing left to be seen. No ground personnel, no flight crew, and no sign of Snakebite 6-1. Everything was gone. If you're interested in purchasing some of D.A. Roberts' books, I have included his author link in the description below. Just click the link, it'll take you right to his Amazon author page. Browse through his library and pick out a book to start with. They're reasonably priced. You cannot get a better bang for your buck regarding entertainment than buying a digital copy of one of his books. You can also buy it in print. They're all offered in paperback, and they're really good books. They're well made. It would be well worth your money to buy them. But once you read one, if you like this kind of stuff, you'll be hooked. You'll read everything he's got. D.A., thank you for allowing me to read the prologue to Odin's Call. I love these books. You're a great inspiration to me. I'm just having a great time reading these. I'm actually going to the beach next week, and I've got 3 or 4 of them already downloaded on my Kindle, and I'm going to read every one of them. So thank you all for hanging with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.